Well, well, well. It's one of those moments where people suddenly care about politics all again, and well, people want answers and people want to know what the hell is going on. And I can think of no better place, because I've been talking about this for a long time. Now let's talk about the big news with Charlie Kirk and what's going on with that. I don't know what order of business I should be talking about this in because everyone wants to know my hot take and what I think. And there are so many things I'd like to say. And I don't know which order to present them in because people are going to pin me down on, one side you have liberal leftists celebrating it. And on the other side, you have the right, which is, I guess, having its George Floyd moment from 2020. And the liberal leftists have not changed. They've always been the same. And this is nothing new. I mean, Gonzalo Lira, I didn't agree with him about a lot of the things he had to say, but they celebrated his death. They celebrated the death of Daria Dugina. They don't see, they're jackals. What can I say? There's nothing new there, but there is something new, which is something that I'm really disgusted by, actually, which is the disgusting and filthy hypocrisy of the right. Let's be fucking honest about something, okay? These people don't believe in the sanctity of human life. They don't believe in, what a horrific, unspeakable act. I'm not here to put people in political boxes. If you're just a normal person, you see Charlie Kirk get killed, it's obviously horrific. But there are these sick ideologists. And, these people are making it seem like they're so sensitive and they value the sanctity of human life so much that this is so shocking to them. And these same people, mind you, these same people are making fun of the slaughter of Gazans. They're calling for the genocide of Haitians, the invasion of Haiti. They regularly call for Comrade Jackson and I to be killed. By the way, none of the shit they say applies to us. I hope you know that. All this whole little dance and whatever posturing, this front they're putting on that they care about people's lives, and it doesn't apply to us. If Jackson was killed, do you think these people would give a shit? They wouldn't. It's extremely performative, okay? It's extremely performative. All the civilians on that boat that came out of Venezuela, did they deserve to get killed? Because that was being cheered on and celebrated by these same people that are so performatively condemning the murder of Charlie Kirk. I find this is the cream on the cake, whatever you want to call it. What about George Floyd? Because he had kids too. Can we talk about how much George Floyd memes there have been in the past 3 years? I mean, it's like people are mocking George Floyd death, and what's up with that? He had kids. So does human life not matter when it's the other, the right? What I find disgusting about the right is their hypocrisy, frankly. Liberal leftists and their jackal-like nihilism and satanic whatever. I mean, that's nothing new. But the right, they have this hypocritical, this false halo above them. They're wolves in sheep's clothing, and they are absolutely irredeemably disgusting. Now, I'm going to give you my hot take about Charlie Kirk's murder, and hopefully I don't have to repeat myself, okay? I think it's horrific, okay? I think it's absolutely horrific. I think it's a horrific thing for children to lose their father. I'm not celebrating it. I'm not celebrating death. I think it's horrific that George Floyd died. I think it's horrific, honestly, when anyone dies. And I mean that. I think it is not it's just not something you're supposed to celebrate. Now, if you're fighting a war and the enemy dies, that's one thing. It's an end to the war. It's finally reprieve. Finally, we can stop fighting. Finally, it's over. I get that. But celebrating the death of people who deserve it Victims, the victims' families who witness the execution of the killer, it is justice. Don't get me wrong. Let's say somebody comes and kills a family member of yours, and according to the impersonal justice of law, that person gets executed publicly. That's justice, and there's no doubt about it. But is it something to celebrate? No, it's a reminder of the horrific crime that took place, having to rectify through justice that original horrific crime. That's not a cause for celebration. Celebration means there's some kind of surplus you gain. You celebrate not when there's an equality, not when it's a tit for tat, and I guess you're just settling the score. You celebrate when there's something extra to be gained. There's something extra there, right? And there's nothing extra about bringing justice to murderers and killers and evil people. If it's part of the mourning process, in a way, of the original horrific crime that occurred. And I want to talk about these topics without being pinned on either, do I agree with the liberal leftists, or I don't agree with either of them, actually. Zero R, what's up with the 10? My take on this is it's so subtle and it's so difficult to communicate because, well, let's be honest, most people are retards and they're going to read into it one way or another. They're going to put me in some kind of box and say, this is what, and I'm trying to actually communicate the opposite. I'm trying to go against people's, impulse to buy into the polarization, because I think it's a false polarity. What I actually think is that in general, I am not a moralizer, okay? This is a brutal fucking world. And death is a normal occurrence in the world we live in. Murder is a normal occurrence in the world we live in. It's part of war. It's part of conflict. Some would even say it's part of politics. Now, we don't advocate for violence or we follow the law. We're law-abiding. But I'm not a moralizer. I'm not here to moralize about anything. My problem with the celebration of Kirk's death is much different than any kind of moralism, which talks about, well, I'm not a moralist, okay? For example, during the Russian Civil War, would I be a moralist? No, I wouldn't. I'm not a moralist. I'm absolutely not a moralist. But why do I have a problem with the way the internet treats dead people? That's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about my problem with how the internet treats death and dead people and killing and things like that. Because since ancient death and these things have been part of human reality since the dawn of history, well, obviously death has been part of human reality since the beginning of time, but at least since the dawn of history, the way we socialize a meaningful justification for murder and stuff and killing, I mean, that's at least since the dawn of history. And I want to talk about that. That's actually the thing I'm the most interested in. And my problem with the way the internet treats death is it's not coming from a longing to return to the past. I just want us to be clear about what's on the table and how do we navigate it? Okay, that's what I want to communicate the most, because I've been saying for 3 years that the political violence is going to get more intense. I've been saying that we're headed for a civil war. I've been saying that we've lost any kind of notion of the value of human life and the meaningfulness of human life. But I want to be objective and give a description of what I'm trying to say instead of a prescription, so to speak. The description I'm trying to talk about has to do with the information age. In the age of information, everything flatly has become information. It's just become another type of information. And the relationship between human beings and information in our society is one of consumption. So we all regard ourselves as passive observers, and we see information and we consume it. And everything is turning into that. Absolutely everything. And we all still think, and this is the illusion I'd like us to leave behind, you know, as a society. We all somehow think there's still this unspoken and implicit reality that comes from the morals and religions and civilizations of the past, which gives us an appreciation for the sanctity of human life, for things that are sacred, for things that are not up for negotiation, and that's just not true. We've lost all of that. That's the Death Stranding. All of that has been wiped out by the information age. Alexander Kojev was absolutely correct. Somebody shared the meme of Kojev in front of the UCA, the Death Stranding United Cities of America. That was an excellent meme, by the way. He was correct to say that this is the age of Americanism, or now it's post-Americanism, but it's the age of the universal and homogeneous state. It's an age in which everything has flatly been reduced to the purity of form, a singular, homogeneous, universal form. And our ability to appreciate particularity, our ability to appreciate death and life, all of this is gone. We have been put in this liminal space, this zombie-like state in which we don't even know that we're alive anymore. And all we're basically doing is consuming information. And everything is being turned into information. Wallow, what's going on? Appreciate you with the 5. So, everything... Wallow, appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Everything is being turned into information. And not only is it being turned into information, it's being turned into information fit for consumption. So somebody could die, and the meaningful significance of that doesn't evoke any kind of relationship where you actually have an awareness of what death is, where you relate your own life to that, where you say, somehow my existence is at stake in that, you know? I'm not talking about empathy. I'm talking about just you witness a death and it has consequences for your own understanding of life and death yourself. Like there's somehow a skin in the game there, right? That's the norm. But in the information age, everyone has become an immortal subject, a passive consumer of information. And so we see ourselves as detached, and we see someone's death in the information age, and we are positioned, and this is what I would argue falsely, in a position where we feel immortal, right? We feel like we're above it somehow, or we're separate from it. So we can make memes about it, we can dance on their grave, we can mock it, we can turn it into a joke, we can turn... It's just an object of information we can consume, and, you know, leave all the serious stuff for real life. And that's what people think. They say, well, this is just the internet, it's just a meme. Leave all the real stuff for real life. The problem is there's no more real life. This is what communication is now. This is the only way we can communicate life and death and every other aspect of human existence, frankly. It's all become uploaded and turned into information, right? So that's what the information age is. Nothing has been spared. Now, here's the thing. There's no going back. The only way out is through. You can't go back to the past in which there was somehow a more authentic relationship to real determinations within being, or real life, or real death. There's no way to go back to that. Everything has become mediated by information, by this universal and homogeneous object, this universal and homogeneous phenomenal object. I'm using big words. Am I using big words? Anyway, this is where we are at, you know? So, we have lost an appreciation for life and death and every other aspect of being. That's the kind of forgetting of being that Heidegger, I'm different from Heidegger, because Heidegger kind of talked about the forgetting of being with, you know, capital B. This forgetting of this more fundamental ground and so on and so on. But I don't know if it's a strong point of emphasis for him about the forgetting of beings. It's kind of like an Aristotelian response to the Platonic Heidegger, I guess. We've forgotten about the particular beings. We've forgotten about the various particular things in front of us. We forgot about finite things, including human life. And this is the kind of predicament we find ourselves in. So, what I'm trying to say, and fuck, it's so hard to, I don't know, guys, I'm sorry, I can't communicate this to retards. There's no way I can make it simple if you're a retard. Everything has become flat. You know, Skibbity Toilet is the same thing as watching Charlie Kirk get killed. It's become the same type of information. There's nothing that actually distinguishes it in terms of its moral or human significance, in terms of, you know, how we are being socialized. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a one-dimensional space of the flow of information. So the only way in which we can actually assert the meaningfulness of things at the expense of other things is through a kind of excitation of the information flow. Vengeance, violence, accelerating the kind of shock and the horror, and you know, this is what revenge takes the form of. All the left is celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. You know, the right wants to respond to that by engaging in gruesome, horrific atrocities themselves, uploading it on the internet, says, ha, we got you, and that's how they get them back. It's no longer about inflicting, you know, upon people pain and suffering directly. It's more about inflicting upon people the shock, horror, to desensitize us and to basically bombard our sensibilities and our subjectivity with horrific forms of information that completely make us numb to reality itself. And the problem is, I feel like we have reached the breaking point for that. We have become numb. And as a consequence of becoming numb, you know, people are now conditioned to be like psychopathic killer clowns. That's the meaning of the killer clown that I was talking about. I mean, that's what it is. A clown is someone who's attention-oriented, whose entire subjectivity is, you know, defined by their ability to entertain others or gain their attention somehow just by virtue of being there. And, you know, a killer clown is not necessarily somebody who's doing it because they're lashing out and they're sad and they're angry or they're whatever. They're just doing it because they can't distinguish that from any other kind of act. They don't understand the weight and the gravity of it because there's no way to communicate that weight and that gravity through a one-sided feedback loop in which you're just consuming and consuming. There's no consumption-based relationship that can allow us to rediscover and recommunicate finitude, particularity, life, death, and anything sacred, really. So how do we return and restore the sacred in the information age? This is kind of what I wanted to talk about in terms of the heavy topic. You know, I'm going to get into the nice drama and all that in a second, but this is something I actually take pretty seriously, right? Well, that's what the ACP and the American Communist Party is about. The whole point of the American Communist Party is to restore the relationship between not only between the consumption of information and the production of information. That's what the ACP actually does. ACP goes viral all the time. But guess what? The people that are going viral, they're the ones producing that information that people are consuming. And so the whole point, the whole way, to simplify it, if you will, we need to recognize and start to raise a type of awareness that we are responsible for the information we consume. We're the ones producing the information we consume. The information we're consuming, we are responsible for it, and it's produced by us. We're not this passive, neutral subject that's just passively consuming, that's completely guilt-free. We are responsible. What we're seeing in Gaza, in some sense, we are responsible for that. It's not just something we're witnessing. It's something that, in some sense, we are producing. Now, there's obviously the leftist response to this was a disaster, I should say, which was to try and, align every type of behavior with a direct moral imperative, which was ridiculous. That was the whole political correctness. That was the whole virtue signaling thing. I mean, that's what leftism was. It was the original way to reconcile that contradiction, that we do produce the information we consume. But the American Communist Party has a different way. We want to prove that we produce the information we consume by giving people a chance to be a part of that. Like, we want to give people a chance to produce very positive forms of information, such as the work that our chapters do, that our party does, and then allow that information to be communicated on a mass scale, to be consumed, and to inspire people to want to be part of that process of producing that information that they're consuming, and recognizing in that information that they're consuming that that information is not, the universal and homogeneous phenomenal object that's just this pure form, right? This flat, one-dimensional thing that's just totally devoid of any dialectical relationship between the input and the output. That there is this. So the American Communist Party is trying to be the solution, in a way, to this problem of, and it's not like it's kind of cringe to call it a solution. It's more like a response, or it's more like a heroic, I don't know. It's a heroic response rising to the task of a new age, and taking responsibility for the information that we consume in some kind of way, at the bare minimum. And not only that, taking responsibility for it as like a moral act, but being able to see directly how it's related, how our acts, how the things we do actually are responsible for the things that we consume. At the very minimum, creating a consciousness that's aware of that is how we rediscover humanity in the age we live in. And that sounds extremely simplistic, but that's what the American Communist Party in a lot of ways is about. Because there's no way to go back to the sacred, to the unspeakable, to the implicit, to the things that are just cannot be uploaded, until people see how the things that they're consuming are themselves produced by them. And once they can see that, they can recognize a discontinuity between consumption and production. And in that discontinuity, there will be a possibility that the sacred can return, that people can appreciate things that are sacred. People can appreciate things that are unspoken, that shouldn't be turned into discourse, that everyone gives their 2 cents about, that shouldn't be reduced to an object of consumption. The George Floyd shit and the Charlie Kirk memes, to me, are the same, or they're on the same level of I look, I'm just going to be fucking honest about my feelings, okay? Can I talk about my feelings? My feelings are, I don't have a special sadness about Charlie Kirk. I just don't. I think it's horrific and I think it's terrible, but I didn't know Charlie Kirk. And all the stuff I've been seeing out of Gaza for 2 years, and a lot of other things, it absolutely has, unfortunately, it's normalized such things. And they have objectively become normalized. And, deep down, because I'm a human being, I do have a kind of silence I would like to give in response. I just don't think it's really something that like even needs to be talked about, although we have to. I would prefer not to, actually. I prefer not even to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it. We're going to be talking about it all stream, but why I would prefer not even to talk about it is um Charlie Kirk's death is unspeakable. It's not something that can be articulated into, just like no human, the death of any human being just cannot be articulated into words. It's like you're passing beyond a threshold, and that's where discourse is supposed to end. That's where the hot takes are supposed to end. I mean, it's not because you it's a moralizing thing. It's like it's literally impossible. It's an absurdity. The thing that I find strange about the Charlie Kirk and George Floyd memes is not even necessarily that, that there's that it's celebrating their death. They're not celebrating their death. You know who celebrated death is the Mexican, okay? The celebration of death happens in many traditional cultures, and it happens in many religions and civilizations across history. That is what that's the celebration of death. You can't celebrate something that you're not even able to articulate or acknowledge in any kind of way through the type of information you're circulating. The thing is that what is strange about the way the internet reacts to death is that they don't just let people die. It's like they won't let George Floyd rest in peace. They won't let Charlie Kirk just die and be dead. They constantly, their images and their likeness constantly has to be used in bizarre ways, granting them a type of extremely bizarre immortality, which reflects to me that the purveyors and creators of that kind of content, in their heart of hearts, when they're engaging online and on the internet, think that they are immortal. Now, of course, on some superficial level, they don't have the delusion consciously that they're going to live forever. But the way that they're engaging and expressing themselves is this unconscious hubris that they are themselves immortal, and that what they're communicating is not that of a finite being, but is this kind of completely invincible, omnipotent, omniscient, immortal kind of subject who is completely above reality in every kind of way, And that is the idol that has to be smashed and completely destroyed. That is an idol to me. That is a complete demonic, satanic perversion. Thinking that you are immortal because you are, mocking someone's death. Death is coming for you. It's coming for every single human being. I mean, people know that on a logical, conscious level, but they don't know it on a deeper level of their unconscious. They don't know it at the deeper level of, what kind of subject they are. They just don't. And it's very sad to me. Every single one of these groypers and meme people who mock death and all this, they're going to die one day. It's so sad. They're going to die so scared, confused, alone, and terrified. Because they never, ever learned in their life what death actually is. So even if they grow to the age of 89 years old or 80 years old, they're going to be sitting there and they're going to be so confused and absolutely terrified. It's so sad. Because they were never socialized in a way. There was never a culture that taught them the meaning and gravity of what life and death are. So this is the boring thing I wanted to talk about. And I'm sorry if you're so stupid you can't understand it. It's because you're a retard. It's because you're a fucking idiot. And what can I say? It's because you're really stupid. As a matter of fact, never mind. Anyway, look, the sanctimony that's coming out of the right, it's incredible. I predict that there's going to be a backlash. There's going to be a response. They're already threatening it. And voila, it's the spiral into oblivion and Liberia killer clown gangs and all the shit that I've been predicting. Also, what's up, guys? I am frankly bored talking about this because I just have been for 3 years. I mean, yeah, what I said would happen happened. Okay, what now? I mean, am I going to change? Am I just going to repeat what I already fucking said? I've said enough on this, frankly, on that specific. Yeah, Civil War is coming, absolutely. When I said it the first time, I wasn't joking, okay? When I said it the first time, it wasn't like, but not really. No, I actually meant it, okay? All the shit that I've been saying for 3 years. And it's gonna spiral. And this is how it's gonna spiral. The right, I think, is absolutely much more vicious and bloodthirsty. I think the liberal left is expressing subjectively what the right will actually probably do in practice. Orbital with the 25, bro. Shout out to Orbital for sponsoring this stream. Orbital, very based, my friend, very based. So yeah, this is the sad circumstances. Charlie Kirk. I find it sad. Not just I don't just find it sad because he had a family, and that's very sad to me. But it's kind of sad how, if it's true in the slight event that this wasn't a Mossad operation, which I doubt. I think this was Mossad for sure. But in the event that it's not Mossad, you know, I think it's sad if whoever was the perpetrator, that they think that this is somehow a meaningful act that they've engaged in. That's what I find very sad. I find sad the notion that that someone was trying to derive some kind of meaning out of this and some kind of something from this, and it's just it's like seeing a sick animal, you know. Now, alluding to what I was talking. Now, okay, well, another thing though, we also live in a brutal fucking world. I'll just tell you the fucking truth. I didn't know who Charlie Kirk was, and I don't have any special enmity toward him. I never did. I just didn't know who he was on any kind of personal level. My ultimate hot take, there's going to be 3 chapters to this stream. This is the first chapter that I'm going to conclude with this my ultimate hot take is that Charlie Kirk deserves to rest. Let his family mourn privately. What he doesn't deserve is to be turned into a political symbol. I fundamentally disagree with that. And that to me is justice. Charlie Kirk did not deserve what happened to him. Whitelist, what's going on with the 25? Appreciate you, bro. Charlie Kirk didn't deserve what happened to him. But simultaneously, he also, I think he mocked and made fun of George Floyd's death. I think he condoned the slaughter of Gazans. I think there's many other things that don't make him worthy of getting killed, but definitely also don't make him worthy of becoming immortal. He doesn't deserve to become immortal. You know what? Here's my hot take. Neither George Floyd nor Charlie Kirk should have been immortalized in the way that they are. That's my hot take. Let the families mourn in peace privately. Just let the families mourn and find peace without all of society having to interfere, and just let them appreciate, you know, let Charlie Kirk's parents appreciate what kind of kid he was. Let his family members appreciate who they knew him as. Let their kids try to appreciate and remember who their father was. Let his wife do the same. Let his family, let the human Charlie Kirk, give some breathing room for that to actually be remembered by those who actually knew him. And as regarding him as a political symbol and all, and that deserves to be forgotten. That's my hot take. And that's even more cruel than the liberal leftists in a lot of ways, because the liberal leftists, they're mocking his death. They're doing all these things. And you know what I'm saying? I'm saying that don't mock his death. Just don't even acknowledge it. Fuck. In the same way you're not acknowledging the death of every single person in Gaza, don't even acknowledge his death. Just, what are you going to do? It's a brutal fucking world. It's terrible for those that knew him, for his family members, in his private life. But politically speaking, Charlie Kirk, frankly, you know, he wasn't some political hero. Okay? I'm just being as frank as I can. So that's my extremely impressive hot take. You know, my hot take is neither George Floyd nor Charlie Kirk deserved or deserve to be immortalized in the way that they were. George Floyd's death was fucked up. Charlie Kirk's death is pretty fucked up. Nobody should have to be killed over it. That's my take. Nobody should have to be killed or punished, and no political consequences should be drawn out from them. That's cruel, because what I'm saying is that on a historical level, Emil, I appreciate it. On a historical level, there's not much room for the memory. His death shouldn't be mocked, nor celebrated, you know, if that's even possible. But it's sad, but that's my take, you know? What actually fucking happened? Now, I'm starting to kind of agree with Jackson, or I did agree with Jackson, that I think Charlie Kirk was killed by Israel. I think he was killed by Israel or the Democrats, and here's why. Or both. You know, because a lot of people were saying that people close to him, I forgot the guy, Harrison Smith or something, was saying that, you know, Charlie was afraid that if he started turning on Israel, Mossad is going to kill him. Well, he did kind of start very, 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 slightly pushing back on Israel and Zionism. And what do you know? He's dead. You know, a lot of strange things are going on in the entire TPUSA traditional conservative milieu. First, you had Tucker Carlson start getting extremely red-pilled on the topic, like for the first time. And he was immediately assassinated. His character was assassinated, I mean. Not physically assassinated. His character, and by who? Nick Fuentes. His character was assassinated. The timing is incredible, right? Now, to be fair, Tucker kind of started it first by mentioning Fuentes as an extension of the Candace beef. And maybe, who knows, maybe it's just some personal petty squabbling that's going on there. But it's strange. Then Charlie Kirk is starting to kind of turn against Israel a little bit. And he gets murdered. He gets killed. So I think that there was a huge fear that people that are seen as mainstream GOP, typical shills, basically, mainstream conservatives, are going to start turning on Israel. That is the fear. Now, if you have an extremist, Fuentes or Richard Spencer or something, that's fine. Those are people are meant to be extreme, and they're meant to be activated when the deep state wants killer clowns on the streets, when they want to foment anarchy and chaos and violence. They have those people to rely on. Because, the killer clowns are not going to overpower the state. The U.S. government is very powerful. The military is very powerful. those things will happen, and then they will be used as a pretext for an unprecedented kind of fascist security regime. So I think it's very possible Charlie Kirk was assassinated by Israel, by the Mossad, or by the Democrats. Because think about it, Trump no longer has a youth wing. He's killed. Charlie Kirk's killed. Who's left? A lot of people are mentioning him. Nick Fuentes is next in line, and he's kind of signaling that he's for Newsom. I think it's very strange. If this was a planned hit, surely they knew what the consequences were. Consequences, absolutely they prefer those consequences. Absolutely. I mean, mainstream talking heads on the left were the ones that promoted Nick Fuentes from the very beginning. Destiny is the one who tapped him back into the fold. Kyle Kulinski has done nothing but praise him constantly. And the Democrats are totally jumping on it and using him. And by the way, the Democrats are the real guys in charge, if you didn't know. The Republicans are the controlled opposition. The Republicans are there. They have long, since at least 2016, it's been solidified. They're in these rural small towns, and they're there to channel all the grievances by white working class people back into the system. And that's what the Republicans are for. They're controlled opposition. And the Democrats are the real uniparty. That's why the anti-Trump Republicans, unite with the Democrats so easily. That since Obama, at least, the Democrats have become the uniparty. The Democrats are the media, the institutions, whatever. The New York Times did a puff piece on the kid, which is incredible. I want to compare and contrast the New York Times piece of Jackson Hinkle versus Nick Fuentes. So it's an incredible comparison. The Nick Fuentes doesn't get slandered or smeared in any kind of fucking way. Jackson's New York Times piece was deliberately and meticulously crafted to make him look like a complete fucking scumbag. I mean, they asked him a question like, has your X account grown since October 7th or something? And he's like, yeah, of course it's been growing. My account has grown. So they misquoted him in the articles to that the Gaza genocide has been good for my career. They took out what he said out of its context so fucking meticulously and deliberately. And this is what they do when they're dealing with us. They're always lying about us. They're always fucking twisting everything we say in these extremely manipulative, conniving ways. But when it comes to the right, or the extreme right, they're always just giving them a podium and just letting them say directly what they want to say without manipulating or distorting anything. They may try to make the argument that, well, this person's just discrediting themselves by what they're saying automatically. But even they don't fully buy into that. We're the only ones who are deliberately kept from being able to communicate what we actually are trying to say. Nick Fuentes will try to say that he thinks black people are subhuman. Okay, the New York Times will not lie about what he's trying to say. That's what he said. We will try to say something, and they will make it impossible for what we're trying to communicate to be communicated. That's the different way they control the information flow between our movement and their movement. That's the distinction. So that is so abundantly clear as well. Okay? Now, everything is on time for what I've been talking about, guys. Charlie Kirk's assassination, it's going to fucking cause... That's the spark under the powder keg we've been talking about. I mean, I got to show it to you again, okay? Because I've been showing everybody I'm always showing people this trailer, and I'm always doing it. I do it so often, and I'm just periodically showing you. I don't endorse the messaging of this trailer at all, but I'm just telling you, like, this adds up for, like, what's been happening, okay? This is it. I mean, what else do you want me to say? This is it.
Bravo 6, going dark.
Defeating the radical left, the Marxists, the agitators, the anarchists. With you at my side, we will demolish the deep state. We will liberate America from these villains once and for all. As my first order of business, I hereby declare martial law.
You have to take out their families. When you get these terrorists, you have to take out their families.
Putin's a killer. A lot of killers. You get a lot of killers. Well, you think our country's so innocent?
Death penalty. Bring it forth.
The only good communist is a dead communist!
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism
Americanism, not globalism,
that threatens the very foundations.
will be our credo.
I'm gonna bomb the shit out of them. Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
The world is as angry as it gets. Well, you think this is going to cause a little more anger?
Everything's on schedule, guys. I mean, it's just like, it's on schedule. Can I ask everyone, is anyone, I'm not surprised at all by, like, Charlie Kirk's assassination. Like, I'm just like, yeah, that sounds like just about right for what is, I mean, I didn't know he was going to get assassinated in particular, but it's, like, it's not at all, like, a shock to me at all. At all. At all. I'm not surprised at all. So it's kind of awkward for me to, like, talk about it. It kind of would be a baller-ass move for me to just be silent.